Carolina Alverez, Tessa Markle. It's exciting to meet both of you. Thank you for being on my podcast today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
We're so happy to be here. Hey.
This is the first time I think, well, actually, I've had one other guest who's actually a podcaster, but I think it's cool to share and promote other people's podcasts, especially film podcasts. And yours is a great one. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But I want to ask you the question I ask all the guests, and that is, when you were growing up, what was your favorite movie? Let's start with Tessa.
Okay, so I kind of have two answers for this.
That's fair.
My current favorite movie, I probably saw too young. I definitely didn't really get it when I first saw it, but I still fell in love with it, which is Forrest Gump. Still my favorite movie. But my favorite movie growing up when I was really little, it was Muppet Treasure Island. I would literally rent it every single weekend. Like, my parents would be like, don't you want to watch something new? And I just wanted to rewatch it over and over and over. That's how I fell in love with Tim Curry. I fell in love with Pirates, the Muppets. Like, it had everything I wanted.
Oh, I was going to ask you if it was the original Disney one, but you're talking about the one with the Muppets.
Treasure Island, yep.
That is funny. That is so funny. And then you loved Tim Curry in that movie. And then later on, did you see the original It with Tim Curry? And you're like, okay, now I'm just freaked out by him.
I mean, I've seen several Tim Curry movies since then. But I think it's funny, too, because like when I did see It, I was an adult. So, I knew Tim Curry pretty well at that point. And even though he puts on the voice, you can still tell when he laughs that it's him.
Yeah. I think my favorite Tim Curry movie might be Legend.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good one.
He's pretty good in that.
Yeah.
He's pretty good in that. So, Carolina, what about you? What's your favorite movie?
Well,
growing up specifically, I guess.
Growing up, I just also want to take it back to like the first movie I remember seeing, and I was probably seriously 3. It was the original Jurassic Park, like the first one, and I remember being terrified but also enjoying it, which makes sense why I love thrillers so much and write about them. So I found that to be, I love that question. I don't think I've been asked growing up that specifically, so remembering that is actually kind of cool. And probably The Parent Trap, because who doesn't love a classic Lindsay Lohan movie? I mean, let's be real.
Yes.
So classic Parent Trap. I probably watched Freaky Friday a million times, the Lindsay Lohan version, and probably good old Step Brothers too. In high school, I loved bringing the gang together and just my favorite comedy for sure.
That's quite a variety of genres there you got. So
sounds like
I like
me.
it. I like
just
it.
A variety.
Yeah.
That's what you get.
Now, obviously, you guys have this great podcast, the Femme Regard podcast. But before that, I kind of want to just for a moment talk about how the two of you met. And my understanding from listening to the podcast is you met in an acting class in LA. Have I got this right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is correct.
Now, did you guys do a scene together, or were you just in a class together?
I don't think we did, babe. Did we?
No, I don't think we ever actually got to work together in the class, funny enough. But, we had seen each other perform in the class. And I just remember after, I think it was after class or maybe on a break or whatever, and just talking to Carolina and getting to know her a little better. And we both just realized we're such similar people. We're both East Coasters. We both wanted to do period pieces and kind of really realized we should work together. We've got a lot in common. And then we ended up working on a web series together. Carolina, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, mention that. I actually don't know about the web series. Tell me about that.
Oh, it never happened. It never got finished.
It never happened.
Well, that
it was a fever dream.
Yeah, something like that.
Pretty much.
And that's it. But it was a learning lesson, and that's why it's always good. I always tell people to just start making something, and you'll learn through that's how we've learned filmmaking. We didn't go to film school, so making shorts together has led us to be able to now get to a point to make a feature. But taking back, so the web series was the first self-created content idea I had, but I was working with a different producer who kind of overstepped and basically never got anything done. And Tessa, I brought on as an actor for the project, and she just always stepped up in meetings. She always took such thorough notes, basically better than the partner I was working with. And after we shot it, I didn't know that he wasn't going to finish it. But I was like, Tessa, exactly, I think we should do something together. And I'm so glad that we ended up, finding each other in this project, because that's what led us to Femme Regard Productions. Yeah.
And that's very cool. And also talking about leading you to that, it also leads you guys to doing a film together, Desert Flowers, right?
Yeah. That was our first, short film. Exactly.
Yeah. I love the key art, by the way, for your movie. It's
Thank
cool.
you.
It's very stylized. It has a lot of personality. It's like, you cannot not notice it when you see it. It's like, this is cool. What is this? And you want to know more. So that's very cool. So tell me a little bit about Desert Flowers. So you do that film, but in addition, that also ignites your production company and your podcast. Is that true?
Yeah.
So what was kind of the thinking there where you wanted to do all three?
When we started, like I said, we wanted to do period pieces. So we kind of said, like, what's something that we could realistically do? And again, we had no experience. And we thought, we're in California. There's lots of ranches, like all this. Let's do a Western. That seems reasonable. It was not reasonable. But
it's great. Great place to start. Horses, weapons,
right?
Stunts,
everything.
Really easy entry level.
A castle, like a period piece. Like in England. Like we're not okay. Like fine, we can't do our own Pride and Prejudice. So like let's do our own spaghetti western, because we were like loved that classic genre. So sure, easy, no problem, Tessa.
But
that's great.
It actually kind of worked for us that we didn't know what we were doing, because we weren't afraid. We were going out scouting these locations and like ended up finding a great place that had everything we needed. And so it kind of worked for us in the end, really. But we did end up, of course, we had written the feature script, decided to film it as a short, and then even made it smaller and did just one scene as kind of like a proof of concept. So we've got that under our belt, and we're pretty proud of it for our first project, really. So kind of
very
worked
cool.
out.
It's a nice showpiece to have, and proof of concept, and that's important. I mean, people out there, as you guys know, are very visual, especially financiers, and then like you could talk all day about a private placement memorandum, and you're giving it to them and all that stuff that goes into getting investors. But when they see it, it's much more tangible. Like, oh, now I see what you guys have been talking about for 2 hours, So it's nice when you can create that sizzle and those kind of things. So that's great that you have that. I know you guys are right now about to start working on a feature, but we'll get to that in a minute. I want to talk a little bit more about your podcast. So you also decided to start, as well as a production company, the Femme Regard podcast. So first of all, congratulations. If I'm not mistaken, it's like 149 episodes or something now. Is that right?
Sounds about right, yeah.
That's a lot of episodes.
That sounds right, Ryan. I love that you're keeping count. I know we're over 100, so yeah, it sounds like we're about in that.
Well, when I see your podcast and I listen to it, there's like a little number assigned to it. So unless you've done a bunch of commercials, I think it's like 149, which is really impressive. Wow. This is episode 90 for me, and I've been at this
That's also
for
amazing.
4 years now. I think 4 years, maybe 3 years. I don't remember, but it's making a podcast is a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
we did it because we did it, I think, a year in 2019. So we started Femme Regard Productions in 2018. And that's when we filmed our Western short. And we realized that having an audience is just so, oh my goodness. I'm so sorry, guys. I was just getting a call.
Did you just get more money for your movie?
I think so. Hopefully. Guys, investors are calling.
Someone just gave us all the money.
Just put it on Do Not Disturb. That won't happen again. But unless it's investor, I might have to call it. Sorry, Ryan.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta do what you gotta do. No, but having an audience, we're like, we're new to this. And in launching Femme Regard Productions, it was important to us to find women to work alongside with, in front of and behind the camera. Like that is our mission. That is what Femme Regard is most passionate about. And we realized in our circle that and being new, that we didn't know that many people yet. And we knew that they're definitely out there. So how are we going to find them? So that's kind of where we started that's where Femme Regard podcast came to mind, because we're like, first of all, it takes a long time to make a movie. So we want to share that process so people honestly just don't keep asking, so when's the movie coming out? Because that's what your aunt and uncle back home are going to ask you at Christmas.
Right.
And you're like,
yes.
Okay, well, it doesn't happen in a day. But, that's actually, to be honest, that's really where it started from. It's like, let's just share this journey that we're on because it's not going to happen overnight. And Tessa and I both work 9-to-5 type of jobs that we also don't have time to like make content all the time. So podcasting actually, even though it's a lot of work, is the work that kind of fits into our lives and schedules that we can like prioritize and figure out a way to do. And then building a community came from that. So that's been really exciting. We learned as we were doing that's the true blessing of having this podcast for us.
Yeah. That's very cool. Yeah. So I'm hearing you say, obviously, you called it the Femme Regard podcast because you wanted to empower female filmmakers, have the female perspective. I think you've even called it the female lens a few times on the show. I think I've heard that term kicked around. In addition to that, as I've listened to the earlier episodes, because I just became aware of you guys in this last 6 months or so. So I went back and listened to some of the earlier episodes. I think you also, it sounds like from what you're saying and what the first episodes, that you're sharing is all about, hey, we're new at this. And we need to learn. And in some ways, you're using the podcast as an opportunity to learn from others. And,
oh my gosh, 100%.
Yeah. And then also share your victories and your failures, the things you've learned with others, which is really great. That makes you very transparent and makes you very real as filmmakers and as podcasters. So I commend you for that, because there's a lot of people out there who put on a good show and talk about things, but never talk about their failures or the things that, their missteps or things like that. And you guys are very good about sharing that, saying, hey, listen, we learned this. Don't do this. Okay. Whatever you do, do not do this.
Right. And that's important
cool.
to us.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you go through so many classes, especially in a city like LA, and you learn all these things that you're supposed to do, but you don't really ever get to hear about like the real side of things, And so we really wanted to share that with people, like, hey, we didn't know what we were doing, and these are the mistakes we made. And these are the answers to the questions that we didn't even know to ask, and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just important to share that and be real with people, because they're going to go through it too. And if we can save somebody the headaches that we went through, like, we want to do that for people.
Yeah. So now you've done it. You've been doing this for this podcast since back in 2019, I guess is what we just mentioned. Do you feel like as filmmakers that you've changed a lot? You've learned a lot. You've changed a lot because of doing the podcast? Would you say that's true?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, like you had mentioned,
yes.
We've learned so much, and it's been amazing to have guests from so many different like facets of the industry.
Right.
Because we really we've learned things that we wouldn't have learned otherwise. Like, for instance, we had an entertainment lawyer on, and that's like a world that we're just so unfamiliar with. And like, do we have to hire them? What do they do? And like, so it's been really cool to have access to the people that we wouldn't probably normally have access to.
My next question is for you guys. Let's talk a little bit about Sync. This is the current project. You guys just started a Kickstarter.
Yes.
Did you start it the first day of October? Is that right? Is that how you started
October
it?
So
3rd.
October 3rd.
Oh, Okay. October 3rd. Got it. And
just
so
to throw in Lindsay Lohan back into the mix, because again, it's so fitting. Absolutely. So this past Monday, October 3rd.
Well, all right. First and foremost, since this is going to be your first feature, somebody give me the elevator pitch on what this is. What's this story? I want to hear it. What is it?
Carolina, you're the writer. Do you want to take this one?
Okay.
Yeah, writer lady, you should do it.
Okay. So, just for genre's sake, it is a psychological thriller set in a sci-fi world. It's about a lonely young woman who moves into a new city to reunite with her old best friend, and this new communications app called Sync comes about, and they decide to mind sync with one another in order to foster a new, closer friendship and connection. And Isla, our main protagonist, soon realizes within 72 hours that she might have to stop this mind sync before being taken over by a potential narcissist. So it's basically utilizing, for us, the two main themes is toxic friendships that we don't think are discussed enough. We've seen toxic relationships, but we're really pinning down on toxic friendships through the female lens, and then amplifying it with the ever-evolving landscape of tech advancements and how we don't question enough the safety that we have in place to safeguarding our mental state, and, you know, how easy and accessible it is for everyone to tap in and get into each other's minds just through social media alone. So the tech is really the vessel into the toxic control and relationship aspect of our film. And we're really excited about it. There you go.
Very cool. I think the perfect person to cast in the lead would be you. Are you thinking that might be a possibility?
Oh my God.
I'm just kidding. I think you've already mentioned it somewhere that you're both in the movie. So
yeah.
Yes. Can you guess who's who? Okay, we have Isla, our protagonist, and Tessa, our antagonist. Can you?
What you just said?
Yeah, you did just said. I don't know if that's not a spoiler, but at least we know what we're going to expect when we see it.
Bleep. Okay, sorry.
All right, let's talk now. Listen, let's talk about this. Okay, so you guys wrote this together. Is that right?
So Carolina really wrote it. It's, her brainchild. And then I came in and helped her when she got stuck or when she needed editing and that sort of thing. So
you were like, Carolina, nobody ever says it like this. This is not how a human being speaks. Let me fix this for you.
I did literally say that to her once or twice.
Yeah. Right. Okay, I got it. So what about how are you going to divide up the responsibilities on the show? Who's going to do what? Because obviously it's a micro budget. The goal here is $50,000 if I'm not mistaken. And you guys have raised what now? 5 or more or something? I don't even know.
So we did have some angel investors in the very beginning before we launched the Kickstarter. So we started with 10,000, and now through the Kickstarter, we're almost at 7,000.
Great.
So getting there.
That's great. So let's talk about who's going to do what. So you're going to both be in the movie, but someone's going to direct. Are we going to co-direct, or what's going to happen there?
So I will also be directing, but it was really important for me to bring on an associate director to help when I'm acting and, can't see the lens. So I'm really, really excited to bring on someone we've had on our podcast, literally on I think our first season, and we've stayed in contact for so long. And her name is Sabine Kawaji, and she is a Canadian-based director, and I'm obsessed with her, and I'm so excited to bring her on this journey with us. Yeah.
Hey, I was sold the minute you said she was from Canada, because I'm from Vancouver, Canada. So if you can involve a Canadian.
Yeah, that's where she's from.
That's awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about the influences of the film, being that it's a psychological thriller, like films like Ex Machina. Is that an influence here to you guys? Things like that?
Yeah,
tell me some of the things that excite you in that genre.
Well, Ex Machina is a perfect example for how AI and a tech kind of the center point is being used to take over, question, humanity and have the protections against a tech advancement, which is AI. We probably will be all taken over by AI, so looking forward to that day. But no, we won't do doom and gloom on your podcast. It's fine. But basically, it's also things. For me, I'm a huge fan of the film Black Swan, Darren Aronofsky's film, and I just loved the psychological tension and the introspection of the main character and the kind of the anxieties she was feeling. So I wanted to kind of have that with my main character, but for me it came down to a personal story of friendship. So, and what I've experienced. So films like that just kind of help create those those visuals. Under the Skin is another one. Visually,
oh sure, is that Scarlett Johansson is in that film, right?
Yeah.
Super
that's a very interesting movie. Yeah.
But I saw that while writing it, and I was like, oh, this is sick. For some of the dream sequences to kind of embody that darkness and the void that she brings her her, victims to. So it's like elements like that that's all gonna kind of inspire and bring Sync to life. Tessa, I know I've said over times, like, oh, check out this movie. It's just like this. Or this. It's just.
I mean, I would also add Black Mirror to the list too. The series.
Oh, the series.
Black Mirror. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because I remember when we were first like writing this, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, that sounds like Black Mirror," and it was like, "Yeah, we're not trying to like redo Black Mirror, but no, we did draw a lot from it because they also did a really good job of like making it." Using the technology as a vessel again, it's like the message is deeper than just that, and I also think they did a really good job on a lot of their episodes of really like building the tension and stuff. So we drew a lot from that as well.
I think Andrew Niccol, who did like Gattaca and In Time, he loves to do these sci-fi movies that are just not too far in the future.
Yeah,
they still feel like present day, but they have that sense. And as you were kind of pitching the idea of the premise, it kind of reminded me of his kind of the look of his films, where it's futuristic. There's technology, but it still is grounded in kind of things that we're familiar with. Clothes and cars and things that are not too futuristic.
Her is another really great example. You just reminded me. That's another one that I drew from a lot, because it's also like set in the future, but it's still like not super.
It doesn't feel unattainable. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Like this is what. Yeah, I would say her, and another one I just remembered was Annihilation. I love.
Oh yeah, right. Annihilation, who is directed by the same director as Ex Machina.
Well, that makes sense why I love them both.
Isn't it? Is it not? That's where they go out into the weird forest with the giant alligators and stuff. Yes, right.
Visually,
yes.
that one heavily too. Like, solidified that in the tension there. But that one's that one actually reminds me a little bit more like Jurassic Park, like monsters.
Yeah,
sure, right. Yeah, that's also our Alex Garland as well. Yeah, that's his. I think that's his second movie. I think. Very interesting filmmaker. And certainly is very talented. He also did a series called Deus, I think, which I've never seen, but that's out there on Hulu or something. But it's also in that kind of mindset.
I think I heard about that one. Yeah, I need to check that out.
You also might like on Netflix, Spiderhead.
I haven't heard of that. Okay,
that's pretty good too. You might enjoy that film too. Those are just things that as you're talking, I'm just sort of coming up in my head. Now, I guess the real question here is, and I'll ask Tessa this, and the word on the street is she's called One Take Tessa. I hope that's a real thing. Is that true?
It's a real thing.
Listen, that is a great asset for a micro budget film when you don't have a lot of time. If you can do it in one take, you're like, One Take Tessa. We're gonna make our day. We're not gonna have any overtime today. But Tessa, the question for you is, I see Carolina, like she's directing it. She's did a lot of the writing. I don't think it's only fair that you should score the movie with all your flute skills.
I don't think anybody wants that.
You don't think that this movie could benefit from your flute skills?
If you want to hear a lot of little squeaks and
that could be very scary. Come on, think about it.
That's true.
Yeah, come on. You just got to think about it in the right way.
I just have an image of like
horror.
Someone crying. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Well, so again, talking about making this movie and what you're about to get into, obviously you can take some of the lessons you've learned from the podcast and apply those. You've now networked with people that you can hopefully go to if you have legal questions or whatever that might be, or DP or whatever it is, the resource that you want, which is great. But also, from doing Desert Flowers, you definitely learned some, you were in the trenches. You learned some really important things there, I'm sure, that even though it's a different genre, the technical aspects of it or the organizational aspects or whatever, from that, you can take that and use it here. So when you did Desert Flowers, like what were the big takeaways for you that you're going to do or not do in this film?
Yeah, I think biggest thing for me was just preparation. Like we felt like we were so prepared, and then there were still so many things. And just like, I would rather spend a year on pre-production if that's necessary to make sure that everything is exactly lined up so that you are prepared if something goes wrong, because it's filmmaking, it's indie filmmaking. Something's always going to go wrong. I mean, we had someone go to the hospital during our shoot. So it's like, you really just have to be prepared for everything. And the more prepared you are with like scheduling and if this happens in money and just all of that, like the better off you'll be, because you only have a certain amount of hours in a day and on a shoot. So yeah, those are all good lessons to learn. And Carolina, what about you?
Yeah, I would say I had the opportunity this past like 2 years to kind of be a UPM associate producer on other short films. So I think some other takeaways just in being on set and like seeing like literally in some locations that Tessa and I were like scouting for this film, which is I highly recommend. Like if you can work on other people's sets and films that are similar to yours, do it. Like you're gonna take away your notes. So things like shooting outside versus inside, and I think that was part of the issue with Desert Flowers. I mean, we had the crazy winds, the animals, like just simplify it if you can, especially for your first project. Like try to have as much variables as possible in your control, because we could be as prepared as we thought we were, and then there's still things, you know, outside of your control. So try to minimize that stress if possible. We're always going to try and take risks. That's why I think I love independent film. Like we're gonna risk it all. But think of like, for me, it's like thinking of what variables are external that I can't control in like an outside setting. Or if, okay, it's like we want to shoot in downtown LA. I ended up working on a short that's shot in downtown LA. Parking. You're going to have to secure like the parking lot, like knowing where you're going to safely staff your crew and make, you know, crafty setup. Where is that station going to be? Like those are things I think when we first started, we didn't have a huge like crew to work with, but now moving forward, we'll have like a more full out crew working with us. It's like knowing where to put people. You can't forget about your people, and that'll just make your life so much easier. So things like that, parking, where's crafting going to be, where's the DIT team, like these little things, you got to plan for that too.
Yeah. So with a micro budget, you know, are you, and being that mentioned, you probably did the budget together. You know, are you going to shoot this in 10 days, 12 days, 15 days? Like what do you think is needed for this show? Just out of curiosity.
So right now we have planned for 6 days, which, you know, Carolina and I have been like, okay, so we've changed a few things in the script. We do need to go kind of revisit our ideal like shot list. But we're definitely going to keep it under 10. So like 6 to 8 kind of at this point. We, like I said, we have to replan a little bit, but yeah, I think we can definitely do it under 10, which is definitely due to having such a small cast, having so few locations. You know, we're not going to have to like travel all around in a day. So that definitely helped.
Yeah, I think definitely when it comes to shooting a movie, especially on a small budget and short schedule, is, you know, a company move will just kill you. Kill you. Yeah. So you gotta stay at a location the entire day. Now that location can play for different things, of course, but you can't load up trucks and go somewhere else. You're gonna kill yourself, unless of course you have 40 days and then you can do that kind of stuff. But so a 6-day shoot. So I guess my question to you is, because that's a lot of page count, especially if you're going for probably an 85 to 95 minute movie, I'm guessing. Are you going to do some rehearsals? You're going to get it out all your systems so there's not conversations on set, so you're just filming, you know, that kind of a thing?
Yeah,
is that what you're going to do?
Being like actors first, that's like the joy in all of this, getting to the rehearsal period and getting to like, you know, we're going to do a table read, of course, with everyone. I'm so excited to do that with others that we'll bring on board. And then, Tessa and I will definitely have our what I call playtime, just playing with it, getting really familiar with the script. Like I, as the director, like I need to have every moment, everything memorized. And I'm like getting to that point now that we're getting through fundraising that I can get so excited about that. Because that's where the art really starts to, you can like learn it and then let go on set. I just want that moment where we can actually even like just discover things, but not out of stress, out of just like knowing it so well, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. You make a plan, you have your shot list, you've thought through it, you've done the rehearsal, you have all that, that's your foundation. And then when you get out there, you can play and be like, you know what, we have that safety net, but we can go and if we get off track, we can kind of go back to what we already know, what we've already rehearsed, but we can experiment here. I would love to ask each of you, what is the thing you can't live without as a filmmaker? It could be a podcast, it could be a book, it could be a website, it could be a movie, it could be anything. You know, it's a tool that for you is really important, and it's, you know, it's the place you go to refuel and recharge. What is that for you guys? Carolina, what's that for you?
Well, really learning, knowing how important story is and how that's essentially everything. For me, whenever I start writing a script, I have to listen because I don't got time to read, and apparently I can't finish books anyways, but it would be Robert McGee's audiobook Story. That has been like my Bible. I would, and I just love that since it is on audiobook, like I can always play it on my car, and just like it just reignites like the themes or the things that I need to always like pay attention to. So I think that, and Tessa texting me always to drink some water. Can't do life without her.
Yes, water's important. Water's important for sure. Yes, exactly. What about you, Tessa? What's something that's a go-to for you? Something that renews you as a filmmaker in your creative spirit?
So I am constantly listening to filmmaker podcasts, and there's several that I really love. Noam Kroll's a big one for us. But that really, like, just always kind of having that playing in the background, even if I'm doing other stuff, it's like I'm still hearing about it. I'm still hearing about other people's experiences, but specifically a book that really, really helped put things into perspective for me as an actor turned producer who has no desire to do like directing or cinematography or anything, but still wanting to understand that whole world to be better at what I do, is Jacqueline Frost's book, Cinematography for Directors.
It's a great
book.
We
actually got to have her on our podcast, and that was amazing. But like that book was the one thing that like finally got me to understand, especially a lot of just like camera things, that I was like, oh, that's that shot technique that people talk about, that I finally get how it works and what it looks like, and why, you know, like pushing the camera in is different than just zooming with the lens, and just all of those little things. And it really helped me as a producer to be able to think like that, but even just as an actor. So I think that book is invaluable to anybody like making movies in any way. So that's a big one.
That's a great book. It definitely tells directors what's important to know and what not to worry about. You know, where to focus your energy and your attention, especially in pre-production. What things you can do to make the job of the cinematographer easier, more focused on your vision as a storyteller. So I enjoyed that book very much. That's a great book. I enjoy Story too. Robert, I've read the book. I have not listened to it. I've read it, but it's a meaty book. Like it takes a long time. It's like this thick.
I did, and see, I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, yeah.
I just listened to it, and like it's gotten to the point where I could memorize. I mean, don't ask me to quote, but like you will get through it way faster, and it's so valuable. So if you want to revisit, recommend the audiobook for sure.
Listen to the audiobook. That's a good, and the idea of like listening to it over and over again as you're driving it just kind of, you absorb it and it becomes kind of who you are.
Yeah,
That's great.
Exactly. I'm like, oh, okay. And then it reignites things you forgot. Like, oh yeah, this is what I need to come back to. Like it's this. And it helps. Yeah, for sure. Kind of ground me.
That's great. Well, thank you for sharing those tips with me. Thanks for talking to me about your awesome podcast, Femme Regard, and your exciting new project that's coming up. Let's talk about I would like people to know where they can support it and help finance it and all that. So tell me a little bit about where they can do that.
Sure. So I will give you guys a bunch of information.
Here we go. Get ready, guys. Right. Get out your pen and your pad of paper.
So first of all, for our Kickstarter for Sync, if you just go to Kickstarter.com and search Sync, SYNC, it's Sync, a sci-fi feature or sci-fi female focused film. You'll see our faces in the picture. It's one of the first things that come up. We were actually featured on the Kickstarter homepage as well, so we're easy to find on there, I promise.
We're wearing wigs though, so
yes, your alter egos, your nemesis, your pink and blue.
Yes.
There it is.
So that's the place where you can go check us out on Kickstarter. We also have social media. So for the movie specifically, we're on Instagram at Sync the Movie. And for Femme Regard, you can find our podcast on all the major podcast platforms, including Geekscape Network, geekscape.net, and YouTube. And you can follow us on Facebook, Femme Regard Productions, Instagram at Femme Regard, Twitter at Femme_Regard, and TikTok, Femme Regard TV.
It's going to be hard for people to find you. You're not in enough places.
We're not around at all. And our faces definitely aren't, featured in anything.
Well, thank you again.
We have a different wig.
Yeah, for a different wig for each platform.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. It's like, yeah, that's your trademark, depending on what platform the wigs change.
Oh my God, we need to, Goldilocks on one, the Western, and then we'll do, yes. I love the marketing tip. Right?
Yeah, the branding, I can see it now. I can see it now. So, well, thank you very much. It's been great to meet both of you. Thank you. First and foremost, let me say thank you for putting out an awesome podcast. It's very helpful to not only me, but to a lot of other filmmakers who listen, who enjoy your journey, who learn from your highs and your lows. So thank you for that. I'm sending good film vibes your way for Sync, your first feature film. I'm very excited for you. It's going to be awesome. And I look forward to talking to both of you again in the near future. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you
Absolutely,
so much.
Ryan. Thank you so much. And for all those kind words. We look forward to having you on very soon. Thank you.
Sounds great.